completely different part of your life that was not reality. But you know, I think first and foremost on my list is dedication and commitment. I've come, and a lot of this, what I tell you, kind of relates to swimming because that's what I know best. I know swimming and I know the champions in swimming. So when I talk about dedication, I've always talked about it, living it through good times and bad times. I have found so many guys that can live through the good times, but have so much harder of a time living through the valleys. And that's what our life is all about. And for me, I've always felt like those are the real winners, if you can live through both. And I'll give you an example for me. In fact, it will be 32 years ago, April 1st, 1980, April 1st, 1980, I broke my very first world record. And to break a world record in my sport is pretty cool. I mean, next to winning a gold medal in the Olympics, it's the highest level you can reach in our sport. To say you're the very best in the world in an event in swimming. And during my career, I broke 12 world records, but this was my very first. The day after I broke that world record, the President of the United States announced that we would boycott the Olympic Games. And some of you are old enough to remember that in 1980, our country didn't go to the Olympics. And that was really hard because in swimming, that is the pinnacle of success for us. We don't have anything else that we really pay attention to. Everything revolves around that Olympic journey. And unfortunately, it only happens every 4 years, not every year. So my journey all of a sudden turned from a 4-year journey into an 8-year journey. But I wanted to be an Olympian. I so desperately wanted to be able to say that I could go to the Olympics because when I'm introduced, I'm always introduced as Olympian Rowdy Gaines. 3-time Olympic gold medalist Rowdy Gaines. Because there's no such thing as a former Olympian. Once you're an Olympian forever and ever. And that's what I really wanted. So I was able to stay dedicated to my goal and train another 4 years, and I had 1984. So along the way, there were a lot of bumps and bruises, but I knew that I had to be dedicated. And those good times and bad times can mean other things. In 1991, I'll flash forward very quickly, but I came down with a disease called Guillain-Barré syndrome. And Guillain-Barré is sort of a neurological disorder. It strikes your nervous system and kind of renders your nervous system. Basically, there's a sheath around your nerve, and what it does is it shreds that sheath, and so your nerves sort of short circuit. So for me, I was completely paralyzed for about 3 months, spent about 6 months in the hospital, and it took a while to recover. But after a year, I felt like I was back to a full health, and a lot of the reasons unfortunately in 1991, we didn't have limo, but I credit my family and swimming and so many other gifts that I had for my recovery. But that was also a valley, and then I was able to come out of that valley because the minute I got out of the hospital, I had my wife take me to the swimming pool, and I started swimming. So I was really dedicated in trying to get better. But that's my point, is you have to live through those good times and bad times. I'll give you one more, and that's taking risks. You know, you cannot be afraid to fail in life. I can't tell you how many mistakes I've made during my life, but it's like I have 4 daughters now. And I know a lot of people feel sorry. You have 4 daughters?
He gets to laugh.
Oh, you know what? The joke is, I said it last night, right? It's so bad in my house. Two really bad points about having 4 daughters. It's so bad in my house and so bad in your house. We play with Barbies and we like it. This is the worst one. It's so bad in our house, we sit down to go pee. Tell me, you have before.
In my house, it goes like something like this.
Oh, you have a son.
We hate boyfriends.
Oh, yeah.
That's the whole statement.
That's right. That's right. So yes, I have 4 daughters, but it's like I teach my 12-year-old. It's okay to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes along the way in your life, you know. But you have to learn from those mistakes. The first mistake you make is a mistake. The second time you make that same mistake, it becomes a choice. So along the way, I made those mistakes, but I was never afraid to fail. And I'll give you an example for me. In 1982, our sport went to a no-fault start rule. And in swimming, back before 1982, we were allowed to actually false start twice. First time was on the field. The second time you were disqualified. So, excuse me, the second time was on the person. The third time you were DQ'd. So we were allowed 2 false starts. And then they went all of a sudden, if you false started 1 time, you were DQ'd. Well, I always came down and I always false started because I liked getting in the water. So I came up with a start now known as the track start, where I put 1 foot forward and 1 foot back, and I leaned back on the block, right? And I came down, and that kept me steady on the block. And when the gun sounded, I'd use my arms and my back foot. The first time I ever used this start was at the World Championships, about a month after I developed it. And long story short, again, I get to the finals of the World Championships, the second biggest meet in swimming next to the Olympics, and I get to the finals, and my back foot slipped off the back of the blocks, and I did a belly flop right in the water.
Oh.
Now I finished 8th in the race. Of course, there were only 8 swimmers in the race. But I vowed never to make that mistake again. So for the next 2 years, I trained a little harder. Could I train twice as hard? No, we can't train twice as hard. But I vowed to train a little bit harder, never to make that mistake again. So I always had this noble goal that I wanted to be the last one out of the water every single day. Whether that meant, now we were swimming 6 hours a day. I swam 6 hours a day, 6 days a week for 8 years. 25,000 miles I swam in 8 years. The length of the circumference of the globe at the equator. But every single link, every single lap was worth it because of my journey. Not because of winning the gold medal, but because of my journey. And so I'm going to show you a video in just a second, and you'll see my race from that Olympic Games, and you can see why I didn't make that mistake again. But there's so many other things that go into trying to be successful, and I'll tell you a little bit about how that relates to my Limu experience and maybe your journey with Limu as well in just a second. But if we can, do you mind starting? It's only 2 minutes long. It's not long. It's actually, this video is actually part of a 2.5-hour film called 16 Days of Glory. And it's a great, great movie on the Olympic Games. And my piece is actually 25 minutes long, but I've narrowed it down to about 2.5 minutes. So, but this is my
Rowdy Gaines is in lane 3. Mark Stockwell of Australia wearing
I've got these funky yellow goggles, and my huge rival is the guy in the yellow cap. Huge rival.
Rowdy Gaines hits the water first. His start is quickest of all the swimmers. A low trajectory straight into the water. However, to some, it appears he beat the gun. Rowdy Gaines, third from the top, leads. Stockwell in lane 4 trails. In lane 6, Swedish champion Per Johansson stays with the leaders. As they approach the halfway point at 50 meters, Rowdy Gaines is in the lead.
Go!
I feel I was in the lead, but at 100 free, you can't look. You look to get beat. So I wasn't looking, but I could feel the presence of the rest of the swimmers, and I could feel like I was in the lead.
Gaines, third from the top, still leads. Stockwell, alongside him in lane 4, trails by 2 feet. With 10 meters to go, Rowdy Gaines, closest to the camera, still leads. Rowdy Gaines does not know he has won.
I was saying to myself, I don't want to turn around. You don't want to turn around. And I was slowly turning around, and when I looked up at the clock, I still didn't want to look at my name.
Rowdy Gaines, the United States first.
Next process. Like a whale, huh?
Mark Stockwell of Australia is furious. He believes he is the victim of a quick start. Nevertheless, he congratulates the winner.
kind of. Good job, Rowdy.
Two facts emerge when the controversial start is replayed. Mark Stockwell of Australia, wearing the yellow cap, was not fully in the set position when the gun sounded. Equally important, Rowdy Gaines did not beat the gun. Rowdy Gaines stands to attention as the national anthem is played in his honor. For Rowdy Gaines, it is a dream that has taken 8 years to be fulfilled.